It's time we talk about a very specific event that happened when JD and I were juniors in high school. The latter half of our high school years was in post-9/11 America, where domestic economic policy had taken a backseat to foreign policy. Who cares about poor people on cell phones? We got a foreign war to pay for, and it's only going to cost us $8 trillion. You know, JD could have really helped his political awakening by just going out and buying a System of a Down CD.
While research on successful drug policy shows that treatment should be increased, and law enforcement decreased while abolishing mandatory minimum sentences.
That's what I was listening to when I was gathering carts in Kroger's parking lot. And let me tell you, nu metal bands were a lot better for your political awakening than some of the more legitimate voices in the media at that time.
When Slipknot and System of a Down first picked a name for their metal fest, the Pledge of Allegiance tour, they were going for irony. But after September 11th, that name took on a whole new meaning. No strangers to political or social commentary, System of a Down now see the tour as a way for their fans to come together and cope with the stress of America's new war by just rocking out.
Very important to reflect upon what's happened, and also to reflect upon what's happened before that in the world, not just in this country, so that you can see the events leading up to something like this, so that you can use changes in foreign policy to institutionalize peace. And you got to take the power from the hands of terrorists. To do so, you got to take their support, their cause. To take their cause, you got to take their injustice away. And there's a lot of injustice.
Sharing the Pledge of Allegiance bill with System of a Down is, of course, Slipknot, whose dark themes and imagery often overshadow their irreverent and forthright take on fear, family, and elitism in America. Ian also sat down with Slipknot's frontman Corey to talk about one issue that the band's particularly passionate about: hate crimes.
Hate crimes have gone up 65% in this country. I mean, it's the ignorance of people who do not educate themselves. We need to start looking out for each other instead of attacking those that we don't know about. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. These are innocent Americans that are being hurt and killed every day, and it's unacceptable to me, man. It's got to go away. It's got to stop, because the only people who are going to get hurt are the wrong people, and it's not right.
So while I was watching MTV, JD was, like any self-respecting hillbilly, I considered heading to the Middle East to kill terrorists. Now, maybe when I was listening to System of a Down, he was listening to Godsmack.
Liberty and the pursuit of all who threaten it. Navy, accelerate your life.
But what I, as someone only 50 miles away and almost the exact same age, found interesting during the post-9/11 period was that there was a cultural reset in the news. Suddenly, there was all these explainers literally everywhere about what was happening. What's Al-Qaeda? Who's Bin Laden? Wait, Bill Clinton had the chance to kill him in 1996, but he didn't take it? Northern Alliance are the good guys? The Taliban are the bad guys? Al-Qaeda QA? There's words that have QA in them? Are you sure? Folks, let me tell you how weird this was. This is when a lot of people first discovered Alex Jones as the guy who predicted 9/11. Suddenly, Americans who just wanted to read the news found themselves lost in a sea of historical context. This is the point when my political awakening really heightened. I grew up thinking that the Middle East was this big piece of desert where wars were always just happening and random explosions and everything was in sepia tone and the music was always scary.
Welcome, my friend.
Obviously, I wasn't that dumb, but it certainly always seemed very complex. All of a sudden, the media was actively trying to dumb down the modern history of the Middle East so that the average American could have some understanding of current events. So I took advantage of that and started paying attention. Or, to put it another way,
you exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
In JD's book, he tries to locate when the heartland had turned their back on the Democrats. Political scientists have spent millions of words trying to explain how Appalachia and the South went from staunchly Democratic to staunchly Republican in less than a generation. And I can tell you, from my perspective, it was about a year after 9/11. The push for the Iraq War felt off, and I remember talking to my dad about it. Why were so many Democratic politicians pushing this thing that felt like a bad decision at best, and at worst, a manufactured heist just to get oil?
Now hold on, here's the best part. Here's how we get the story out to the American public. A quote-unquote anonymous White House source, basically us, Cheney, Romney, Condi, whoever, would speak to all the major media outlets like the New York Suck My Dick Times. And then Judy Miller or J-Bomb would write up the story, and the same people who planned the story, Cheney, Rummy, Conner, etc., go to all the news shows like Meet the Press, This Week in Washington, The View, and hold up the story that they planted and say, wow, look what the Times said. Pretty good plan, huh? Yeah. Slowly our case was made, except there was one last hitch. Most of the world thought we were crazy.
And with the coming election, this would cause a lot of trouble for the Democrats. The failure of John Kerry and the failure of Hillary Clinton and the rise of Obama were largely based around the fact that Democratic voters just wanted a candidate that didn't fall for the Iraq War and also wasn't condescending when they were asked about it.
In America, you have a right to be stupid.
Today, J.D. Vance claims to have a similar position to the one I had then. J.D.'s tone about this is different now from what he gives off in his book, which was published in the faraway times of 2016.
And in 2003, and look, it was Republicans and Democrats, a lot of people supported this. I'm not just beating up on the other side. But in 2003, we went to war in Iraq, and remember, it was supposed to be just a few weeks, and then everything would be over. And I was an 18-year-old kid. I supported it, and I was wrong. And you know who was right? President Donald J. Trump. He knew. He somehow knew, even though he was a real estate developer in New York, that this thing would become a quagmire. It would cost thousands of lives and trillions of dollars.
I'm saying that he didn't see it then, and then wrote proudly about how he didn't see these things that are very convenient for him to see now. And how did Donald Trump know? How did such a genius figure know that the Iraq War was bullshit? I don't know, but we have to hand it to him, because if Donald Trump was against the Iraq War, then, you know, he truly stood up and opposed the war. We have to give hats off.
Are you for invading Iraq?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, I wish the first time it was done correctly.
Or not. I guess we don't, because he didn't.
Yeah, I guess so.
As J.D. praises a man that he once called Hitler for being against a war that he himself joined the Marines to go fight in, he's showing us who he is, which is whatever he thinks he needs to be for you to like him. I assure you that in the years after Trump dies, J.D. will pretend that they never saw eye to eye and that he was always against him. Or Trump becomes Hitler and J.D. happily sacrifices his entire family for him in a bunker. In the same week that Congress authorized the Iraq War, I went to Little Arts Theater in Yellow Springs and I saw a movie by Michael Moore.
Here's my first question. Do you think it's a little dangerous handing out guns in a bank?
That movie had a huge effect on me. Partly because it's 20 years later and I'm still ripping it off. This whole thing, this whole pop culture, politics, spin, media, being honest, but also sort of irreverent. I'm still biting a thing that I saw in 2002.
Oh, I can't say I was a big fan of Bowling for Columbine, because I thought it was going to be a bowling movie, like Kingpin.
As a high schooler who grew up with Rage Against the Machine, it was a bombshell to see something as clear as this presented in a movie.
What a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by.
And if you want more of that kind of thing, shameless plug, check out The Present Situation. Now, despite your opinion about Michael Moore, I think it's safe to say that he generally has very good political instincts. Or at the very least, he stopped me from going to the Middle East to kill terrorists like any self-respecting hillbilly. At this point in our lives, JD and I actually started doing something similar that most Ohio teenagers were not doing. Reading books. JD is reading books about social policy like The Truly Disadvantaged by William Julius Wilson or Losing Ground by Charles Murphy, and I'm discovering Howard Zinn, Noam Chomsky, and even Nietzsche, someone who many of the people who will later influence JD's life were also reading in their youth, but I grew out of it and they did not. At this same time, JD moves into Mamaw's house, which will be airing this fall on NBC at 8 p.m. A move that he credits as literally saving his life by encouraging him to go to college and ultimately just puts him in an environment where he is happy. He takes up golf because she tells him that's where rich people do business. I was not playing golf. In fact, I didn't play any sports in high school. I used to use 2 facts from this time in my life to describe myself. 1, I skipped my junior prom to go to a Star Wars convention. And 2, I was 2 votes away from becoming prom king. Partially because I plastered these all over the high school so people would vote for me as a joke. But I still think that I was less of a joke candidate than JD Vance. If I had Peter Thiel's money backing me, I think I could have been prom king and queen. But more on that later. After graduation, JD enlists in the Marines because he would always regret not participating in America's newest war. Yeah, I think I'm good on that. I think I probably won't wake up and be like, oh man, I should have joined that war when I had the chance. Nah, I'll just go see the movie later, I think. So I actually decided I would do the opposite, and I applied to the first state university I heard of that had a film program. So I went to Bowling Green State University, BGSTD, baby!
Don't wanna be an American idiot. Don't want a nation under the new media.